Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first book review session. We are reviewing the book, The Geek Way. Let me give you a little history into how did we get into this initiative. Ayush, when we were having conversation about his elder one moving to elementary program, Ayush told me how there were certain questions and there were certain uh, questions around is this the right decision to move the child to Montessori elementary program. He said this book gave him so much clarity in making the choice to continue with Montessori program. And that's when I said, okay, let me know which book it is and how this book quotes the Montessori influence on a lot of trillionaire, a lot of companies which are $1 trillion plus valuation and who are doing some game-changing innovation work. And that's when I requested Ayush to see if he can review this book. And based on the response, I said we can continue to do these kind of book reviews maybe once every month. So thank you so much for taking this initiative to lead today's book review session on the book, Ayush. So
No problem.
everyone else, let me share the framework, the structure for today's session. So Ayush will start with his review, and me and Munira will keep pitching in between and at the end of it. After this, there are some of you who have volunteered to share your review. So each one will get 60 to 90 seconds to share some of your insights from reading the book, some of your insights into your parenting perspective, and anything else you would like to share. All right. So over to you, Ayush.
Wonderful. Can you all see my screen? Is it visible? Okay, the landing page is visible. Wonderful. All right. Thank you all for joining the review today. By the way, I won't be able to see the Zoom screen because I'm actually looking at the presenter view and I have the slide open on the next window. So I'll need verbal instructions to stop if required at some point of time. Thank you, Mr. Pawan, for the introduction. I think this was a great book to read. I generally love reading books, and this one just happened to have just come to my hands in some way. I'm going to talk about the journey, but I think this quote really captures the gist of the book well. Right, a bunch of geeks are now doing what for companies what Maria Montessori did for schools. They're reimagining them, improving them, and exposing the false assumptions. There's a quote by the author himself from the book, which I think kind of really drives the point home, right? These are like the poster boys of innovation and geekways, Jeff Bezos and the founders of Google. And so my name is Ayush. I'm Avyushi and Ashwath's dad, and we're going to be talking about the Geek Way and how they marry to the concept of Montessori education today, right? Just a bit about myself. I am not a Montessori child, unfortunately, myself. I wish I was. I'm not AMI certified instructor. I'm definitely not running a multi-billion-dollar business yet. But luckily, I've been part of the geek culture for the last 15 years. I was with Amazon for 15 years and moved on to becoming a founder of a company called Topic. My co-founder Raj happens to be a fellow Blue Block parent too, so you can see the common strand there. And we are passionate about inventing the future, right? And much like everyone in this room, right? I'm extremely curious, to understand what should our kids be doing? How can we prepare our kids to thrive in this future, which probably is going to be led by AI, right? And that led to my exploration. That okay, what would it take to really thrive in this environment, right? And just a bit about how this book happened to me, right? While I was researching on this topic, I came across this wonderful quote by Ginny, who was the ex-CEO of IBM, I believe. She said that the key to success with AI is not just having the right data, but also asking the right questions. And naturally, I started diving deep on what would it take to ask the right set of questions. And I came across this wonderful paper. I think it's called How Innovators Mind Work. It's an HBR paper by somebody called Hal Gregerson and Jeff Dyer, if I'm not wrong. They are management researchers. And I think what it beautifully says is that, like, if you look at the 4-year-olds, they're constantly asking questions and wondering how things work. But by the time they are 6.5, right, they stop asking questions because they quickly learn that the teachers are valuing the right answers more than the provocative questions. And they further concluded that a number of these innovative entrepreneurs actually went to Montessori school, where they learned to follow their curiosity. So this was a good, you know, statement that started ringing a bell in me that, okay, maybe we are doing something right. And I think and then came across this wonderful quote, which was actually part of the blog written by the author of this book, which says, it's a quote by Larry Page, where he talks about himself and Sergey Brin, that they both went to Montessori school. And I think it was part of that training of not following rules and orders and being self motivated and questioning what's going on in the world, doing things a little bit differently. It really helped them in setting up Google. I think these were the points that really kind of helped me put together that, okay, maybe the key to asking right question, Montessori, maybe if it's not the only way, it's definitely a way to prepare our kids for the future. And that's what kind of really tipped the scale for me personally. There's a link to the paper. The book actually goes as far as calling Dr. Maria Montessori as the patron saint of geeks. Calls out how she asked the wonderful question of how do children learn best. She devised methods that foster innovation and creativity, even in the business world today, right? They're equally applicable. And we're going to talk about some of them. And definitely prove to all of us that the existing ways of education that were there back then could get better. We'll briefly, touch upon the definition of the word, the meaning of the word geek, right? I know there've been all kinds of negative connotations to this word, but I think the book beautifully describes them as obsessives of any kind, or people who get fascinated by a topic and won't or can't let go of it, no matter what others think, right? That sets the tone for the rest of the book on how the author is actually looking at the geeks. A brief overview of basically what geekdom is, right? Like it's the 4 pillars that the author talks about versus science. So, right, the geek driven culture really prioritizes metrics, data, output driven thinking to kind of, ensure that there is rigorous scientific inquiry happening and debate happening. There's a sense of ownership, a culture of autonomy, right, where every individual is empowered to own things end to end. We'll talk about certain examples from my experience at Amazon about them. Speed is extremely important, and for the ones who coming from technical background would remember the word of waterfall models, where we realized soon that the last 10% of the project ended up taking more than the first 90%. And then the whole world started moving towards agile principles, right, of iterating and faster cycle time. And then lastly is openness, which the way I looked at it is involves radical sharing of data, between the leaders. It embraces failures, avoids, fake success narratives, and really ensures there's group thinking happening. There's a lot of transparency, and everyone is invested in the success of the organizations, right? These, in a nutshell, are the 4 pillars of geekdom that the author talks about. But what we'll do now is try to extract certain elements which are derived from these pillars and try to map them to the Montessori world and what examples I could see. So Mr. Pawan was kind enough to have me visit BlueBlocks a couple of times, just to capture some real world instances of what was happening there. I'm going to kind of marry them in the conversation next. The first, pattern that I could see was the empowerment in learning, right? I think an empowered team, the way I look at it, is a group of individuals who have the authority, resources, support to make decisions and take actions that affect their work. Amazon has this concept of two pizza team, single threaded leaders. Spotify has this concept of squads, right, where these people are empowered to take decisions so that their output increases or they're delivering the right value for the customers. And both Geek Way and Montessori education, they emphasize on empowering individuals to take charge of their learning and decision making. As an example of kids moving the tables around, I think they were trying to make the environment better for something they were trying to learn there, right? Similarly, creativity, and this actually is a picture from the maths workshop that happened last week. And just a moment to thank Miss Sandhya. So that's my son, and he was actually trying to explain fractions to somebody, and I think he got bored of that very quickly. And then, like, no, she just asked her to trace something, and he actually started drawing the green monsters. So the horns of the monster are actually drawn from the fractions that he had, and he traced them and built, like, no, he drew a bunch of monsters there. So I think it was a great example of Miss Sandhya and other directors, encouraging, innovative thinking. They've not restricted him to kind of just demonstrate fractions using that, right? And he ended up drawing some cool monsters that day, and I absolutely loved it. And I saw it firsthand. This was literally last Saturday, right? Collaboration and teamwork, again, key to both the methodologies. I think, if I remember, there's this kid Badruddin, if I remember his name correctly, and I was walking through the environment, and he actually explained me that he's designed a game which actually is used to explain the color of the sky as we go around the sun, right? And he was working with somebody to kind of, collaborating with someone on his team to actually paint it and prepare a game around it. Again, something we see a lot in corporate world, right? I'm sure we've all been part of certain teams and of always operated in teams, right? Similarly, mixed age group is a concept very common at Montessori. Again, clear testament of this collaboration and teamwork. Self-directed learning, right? I think somewhat related to empowered learning, but, like, I like to think of as individuals who work together autonomously, right? And go back and take an example of SI environments where, like, been to observation a couple of times, and I almost never I had, like, directresses standing on someone's head to make them do stuff. They're like, this, they introduce the material and then they're moving around. The kids are actually kind of self-directed in a way that they're deciding how to kind of do things, which is very similar to the way the world is happening in corporate world today, right? There's a lot of autonomy. There's a wonderful book called Drive by Dr. Daniel Pink, and talks about autonomy, and how that helps individuals in performing really well, right? um, Respect for individuality, right? Every child is different. We'll follow the child. We've heard Team Blue Block say so many times about it, right? And if you think about it, the whole initiative of DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, the founding principle, or the foundational principle rather, for that is appreciating the individual differences, right? So the same concept which has different manifestations in corporate world, but are reflected so beautifully in the Montessori education, right? The respect for individuality, as they call it. The learning environments matter, right? This is the elementary room, and as you can see, a lot of stuff which is set up in a way that the kids enjoy the learning, right? They're allowed to move around. They're actually encouraged to talk to each other. And if you think about it, a lot of the corporate world today, like, we heard stories about Facebooks and the Metas designing their offices in such a way that people can run into each other more frequently and discuss new ideas, right? That learning environment is key. And in fact, it's one of the key reasons where a lot of people are pushing for, like, a lot of corporate leaders are pushing for people to return back to the office, because they want to talk to each other. They want to actually, learn by the process of osmosis, as one of my professors used to say it. Similar setup we see in Montessori, right? The whole setup is designed to kind of ensure that engagement and comfort is promoted. Next up, feedback and reflection. I'm sure 360-degree feedback and annual reviews are nothing new to us. We've all had our shares. But I would want to take a moment to talk about something called Forte, which we used to have at Amazon, right? Which was a very forward-looking conversation. And again, an example of a reflection. The weaknesses, or so-called weaknesses, are never touted as weaknesses there. They're always called areas of improvements or growth areas, right? And I could see that very well lined up with the observation. So this is really, I think Avyushi or Ashwat's observation card, and talks out. It had quantitative and qualitative analysis how the kids were doing, which is very similar to the way things happen in the corporate world generally, right? Real world applications, right? And I think that's where one thing I've seen, which where probably BlueBlocks has gone a step ahead, right? They're building drones, and there are a lot of concepts that I could see being understood and actually kind of inculcated in the environment. Stuff like trigonometry, geometry, weighing scale, all that was applied to kind of determine, for example, the payload that a drone could carry. And I had a video, I couldn't put it there, but a lot of learnings which are actually kind of taking place in the environment are applied in the innovation labs, for example. And I know this is where probably BlueBlocks has gone a step ahead of what Montessori way of doing things were, because I don't think there were drones back then when Dr. Mario Montessori was operating, right? But a wonderful example of how real world application of the skills you have actually accumulated are emphasized in both the approaches, right? So these are a few parallels I could draw, and I'm sorry I'm rushing a bit because I'm also keeping a tap of the time. Um, I think there's one place where the geeks can learn a lot from the Montessori way. There's still a room for improvement. It's about psychological safety, right? To just elaborate, it's a belief that individuals can express their ideas, their questions, their concerns without fear of punishment or humiliation. And I think this is something that I've seen firsthand beautifully at Montessori, right? Kids are free to express themselves. I remember Mr. Pawan was sharing a story where kids walked up to him on how they wanted to see a movie. I think Harry Potter, Mr. Pawan, if I'm not right, and how he actually kind of indulged them, and he didn't just kind of shut the idea down, right? But the geekdom is full of examples where certain geeks can absolutely not take any feedback. They are known to get hard at people who could actually kind of give them some sort of feedback, right? So it's hard for some geeks to take criticization, if I may call it, right? And I think that psychological safety is where I still see there's a lot of gap in the way the world operates today outside and the way Montessori is operating today. I'll close it off with a quote by Dr. Richard Feynman. And this is his photo holding an O ring, which was the cause of a $10 billion disaster, inflation adjusted, and how he asked lot of questions for that Challenger disaster to actually arrive at this conclusion. And this wonderful quote says that the students should be made to doubt, to think, to communicate, to question, to learn from their mistakes, and most importantly, have fun in their learning, right? Um, I, I strongly feel the Montessori education actually kind of caters to all of them, and this point really drives the point home for me as far as the education system there is concerned, right? I'll top it off with, open to any questions. But this is a wonderful leaflet that I saw at one of the desks on last Saturday. Some kid had to go home. They were definitely not happy about it, but they were very clear they have to go home. And that's what I'm trying to say now. That's all I had. That was my time. Happy to take any questions. And again, thank you for the time. That's my V card. You could probably kind of try scanning it. And happy to stay in touch, answer any questions, discuss more books. But that's all I had for today. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks, Ayush, for some wonderful insights into the book. So since you are the one who initiated this book, my question to you, Ayush, is considering how with our children we are preparing them for 2040, 2050 era, from what you read, what what some of the references, how do you think, Montessori program, what we are doing at Blue Blocks, adding that amazing layer of innovation program to Montessori program. So what are some of your insights into, are we in consistence with preparing them for 2050, 2040 era? So while we don't have all the right answers, are we in a right direction? What's your take on that?
Mr. Pavan, you don't need right answers actually. ChatGPT will take care of
Correct,
them. There are enough tools to give you the right answers. I think we need people who ask the right set of questions.
correct.
And I think that's where the needle needs to be moved. you know it's unfortunate, a lot of kids, they realize very quickly that they are rewarded for good answers. Nobody cares about their questions, and I think that's where we are doing the right thing. And that, in my mind, is the key to preparing kids for the future. Make sure they ask the right questions, make sure they're looking for the right set of things, make sure they are curious about things, because everything else will probably be that will be automated. The answers would be taken care of. The questions, like the chat gpt cannot give you answers if you don't ask it the questions. And I think that's where you're doing a wonderful job. of forcing, or rather, encouraging kids to think in the right direction, being very curious, questioning things, doubting things. I think that's a key part in my mind to succeed in future, and I think we're doing a wonderful job there.
Great. That's great, Ayush. Would any of you want to have any question for Ayush on this? If not, we can move on to some of you who wanted to do a brief review, and the review can be anywhere between 60 seconds to 3 to 4 minutes. So let's do it this way. So can you raise your hand for those of you who are still keen on reviewing so that I can call you in certain sequence? Anyone who would like to review? Yes, so Prerna, you're the first one. Please go ahead. And for others who want to review, please raise your hand so that I can invite you next. Please go ahead,
Yes.
Prerna.
Thanks, Pawan. And thanks, Ayush. You covered the book so wonderfully well. So I don't think I have much to add. I'll try to keep it more conversational and pick threads from what you spoke about. So I think somewhere the question was, Pawan, that what is it that we can do better? We are already doing it, but somewhere the more we reiterate those concepts in our mind as parents, as the blue blocks, I think the more we will get used to it, because the education system that at least I came from, I have never questioned why we are doing what we are doing. I've never thought about systemic thinking. Say, for example, I remember a conversation with you, Pawan, where I proposed, can we, have a workshop around the type of arts, and you said, why just art? Why not question that, okay, if in a particular era, art was done in a certain way, why the colors were chosen, that way? Why is it that we drew those kind of whatever we were drawing? And I was like fascinated with the questions that you brought in. I thought, can someone take that workshop for me? I mean, for in my own mind, the excitement of that topic increased multifolds. So I think if we can continue holding those kind of conversations with our kids, on why and what's the purpose of what we are doing, because few of the topics are so overwhelming, if I may say so, and so misunderstood. DEI, Ayush spoke about DEI in many, it's misunderstood in the sense that people would just feel that, okay, it's about gender ratio and let's hire, say, more women professionals. But you called it out beautifully. It's not that. It's about appreciating the strengths, what we bring in, the individuality. So if those things can be somehow baked into our daily learnings in the minds of children, so that at least in future we do not have to struggle. Right now, if you ask me, we are really struggling explaining those concepts to most of our workforce at the workplace, because until unless that's understood, the purpose and the why behind it is understood, I think we will take a lot of years to see the benefits of our focus on DEI or sustainability or things like that. That is something which BlueBlocks is already doing wonderfully well. But if we can continue to, just build on it, that's something which I have to add.
Absolutely, absolutely, Prerna. And see, like, our scope of work is way beyond just academic learning, right? And, the sensitivity in terms of their language, attitude, behavior, it's not just the etiquette we are talking about, but we are looking at that being inclusive, and we are not just talking about tolerance, but we are talking about acceptance. We are not just talking about acceptance, but we are constantly helping them being sensitive to others' religion, culture, values. So, we are looking at things constantly, and a lot of that has to come from where we are, Prerna. We are as parents and we as educators. And as you rightly said, we haven't come from that kind of cultural background. I grew up where, making comments on different race, religion was like part of growing up everywhere. And, I was just sharing this with one of the parent where recently I met our MBA friends, and when when they were all joking, it's like it's so difficult for us to joke without being racist or without being
Yeah.
prejudiced. Like, it has become such an integral part of who we are. that we don't know how to have fun in a social setting without making fun of someone else.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a paradigm shift in who we are going to be as parents and educators, and creating that whole new way of thinking, whole new way of being. I keep telling Munira, we got to create a lot of perspective around how can children have fun without putting someone down. So the more context we create, the more ways we create to have fun, then they don't have to look for those cheap shortcut ways to have fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I may just bring in one topic, I know there are other hands raised.
Yeah,
It is
please.
around confidence, Ayush. I mean, it's more of a question that I have in my mind, that confidence is something which has helped human beings. Somewhere it says that it is needed for the survival and
Overconfidence.
overconfidence, rather. Yeah, that's the word, overconfidence. And it's there. Even the scientists or somebody from a sports background, they've all said that confidence is the key. But how do we define this confidence? And that is where that pillar of science helps.
Yeah.
So somewhere, if we keep bringing in both the aspects, confidence is needed, but you have to talk about science too, in your conversations. So I think that is something which will make our children more humane in their conversations, because they'll be coming up with some backing when they're talking to others. So that's just
Yeah.
one aspect in question. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for bringing that up again, Prerna. So we have Karthik and Amaira as parents who are looking at reviewing. So even if you do not have a review, you have a question, keep raising your hand and we'll keep involving you. All right. So over to you, Karthik.
Yeah, hello everybody. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. Actually, it was wonderful meeting all of you, and Ayush, kudos to you for igniting this initiative. And well, I was reading this book, and I had goosebumps all over every single, especially the chapter of Maria Montessori. Right, it was amazing. I would just like to give a quick intro. I mean, I'm Karthik, and I'm father of Sreshta. He's a 14-year-old. All brought up in BlueBlocks, right from the SI till adolescence. Right now, she's going through the Ed Kinder program right now, and like most of you all, right, I was also belonging to a traditional schooling system. Like in the book, I read somewhere, right, that in the industrial age, when the classrooms started, when the teachers started building the classrooms, it was a good thing at that time, and the corporations started getting into existence. That was a good thing that time. But then eventually what happened, we have overbuilt our classrooms and we have overbuilt the corporations. And I would like to say that, for the past 20 years, I have sat in the industrial aged classroom. And for the past 20 plus years, I've been working in industrial aged corporation, which is now still evolving. Okay. I would not take the names, but, but from coming from that kind of a background and coming to BlueBlocks, I feel home here. I feel that, okay, this is the place where not only my child is growing up positively and preparing for the future that she's going to step into, but even for me, I would say I'm privileged to be part of, as a parent volunteer, working in the Ed Kinder program. I feel very fortunate to be closely associating with Pawan, Munira, and the BlueBlocks team. I could see the geek culture in BlueBlocks, and that is exactly the reason which keeps me going. I will try almost every day to go to BlueBlocks, stay there for some time, and then go to my workplace. Because that is where I find that real, that's where everything's happening. That's where the future is building. And I can go on and on, but due to the lack of time, I will only end with this: that it takes courage to establish a school like BlueBlocks. It takes courage to start something, challenging the existing system, and of course, putting Montessori system itself is very radical. Like it says in the. But then on top of it, like Ayush was saying, BlueBlocks, is taking it to the next level and challenging every status quo out there. So as a parent community, as a parent, we all should basically be embracing this culture and strive not to get that parental instinct on the way towards uh, putting that limitation to our child, right? So again, I'm still yet to complete that book. I am very sure more exciting lessons are there in the upcoming chapters. I will continue to read, get inspired. But once again, thank you for the opportunity. Over to you, Pawan.
Thank you. Thanks, Karthik, for sharing that. Uh, see, the courage comes from deep commitment to do some game-changing work, Karthik. See, we as a country uh, is not innovating in most of the sectors. Off late, yes, we see a lot of innovation sprouting in certain industry, but we are 1/6 of humanity, which means 1/6 of world's innovation should be coming from India. And why just 1/6? I would say at least half of the innovation should be coming from India. And all this work we are doing will culminate into the inspiring educational institutes across the country. That has been our goals. For that, we want to constantly produce some game-changing results with children at school, be it with innovation, drone technologies, drone designs, to our children building real-time satellites, sending it to space real-time. And we constantly want to inspire schools that children can not just get good grades in academics, but along with that, they can do some game-changing work while they are at school, where children are not just consumers of information, knowledge, and producers of that knowledge and information, but they can apply that knowledge in that process of application. They can create, they can design, they can construct, they can innovate, and they can invent. So, and that's a bold perspective. And unless we constantly challenge the status quo, what you just said, Karthik, there's no way we can be in this journey. So thanks for sharing that, Karthik. Munira, you have something to share?
I was just, thinking about, when Karthik was sharing about how he comes to BlueBlocks to get that energy and then goes to his workplace. I was just thinking that when I started reading the book, my first thoughts were, let's put BlueBlocks through the geek culture test. So I have been doing a lot of that introspection. And I think, combining what Karthik and Pawan both said about how we've got to constantly think about, okay, what more is possible? Also, I think that's a point that Prerna is trying to make, that, okay, what more can we do? How else are we looking at this from a very futuristic perspective? Is what, I have been in the inquiry of ever since I started reading the book, both from an administrative point of view as well as from an education point of view. So yeah, that's something I wanted to add.
Right. Thanks for that. And again, just to build on what Karthik just said, Karthik spends at least 60 minutes to 2 hours, 1 hour to 2 hours every day, Monday to Friday. He tries to come and spend, and he talks about how that 2 hours gives him energy to work for next 8 to 10 hours at his office. Being around children in this beautiful pedagogy is way more powerful than any meditative experience. Here you will experience making some real difference to children when you show them something, when you interact with them with what is possible. In that interaction, I don't know how much children get, but what I know is you will not be the same person after that interaction. You will look at whatever you have taught from a whole new perspective. And the way children respond, and when they get what you are trying to deliver, and when they build on that, when they do some magic with that what energy it can add to you, you have no idea. So we have more and more parents wanting to experience this. You don't have to come every single day. You keep sharing how you would like to contribute to everything we do, and we will take the right opportunity. So we have Hanita, who's a chartered accountant, who's recently proposed that she would love to work with adolescents, and she's coming up with the total accounting program for all adolescents, which will help them run the startup terror utopia. So the first part is where she'll help build accounting systems and books for children. Post that, once that is done and taken care, she will also help children prepare a deck with all kinds of projections to be able to talk to some future investors for their expansion plans. And Anita, like, she's the one who's been constantly reaching out. When are we doing? How are we doing? So thank you so much for that again, Anita. So whatever way you think you can contribute, keep reaching out to us. We might not be able to involve you right away, but we would love to involve you in whatever best possible manner, right? Thanks. So over to you, Manish. Yeah, go ahead, Manira.
Yeah, sorry, before Manish goes ahead, so while you were talking about all of this, that I'm not going to reiterate, but I would like to just quote something from the book, and I would like to connect it to, how we see this happening day in and day out in the environment. And, some of the guides who are there on this call can also maybe corroborate that for me. So it says, in the geek way, speed doesn't mean velocity. It means the cadence at which a company can iterate. Speed refers to how quickly a team can build something, get it in front of a customer, or otherwise test it in the real world conditions, get feedback, fold that feedback into the next version. So there are so many steps it talks about, right? It talks about how you got to be quick, you got to come up with something, you got to be able to present that, you got to be able to take feedback, and then include that feedback in the next version. There are 5 steps in this, 5-line statement that the book talks about. And just to give you a quick framework, or to help you understand, after every presentation that happens in the environment, children pick up something that they want to do as a follow-up. And most often than not, they want to make a model, or they want to design a board game, or they want to draw something and put some information in it. And all of that, happens within the next couple of days, 2-3 days. Sometimes if it's a very big project, maybe a week, or 7 to 8 days. But they want to present. They want us to listen to what they have made. They want us to look at it. They want us to, not validate, but, take our opinion on what we think about what they have done. And, only while reading this, I got present to the fact about how they take what we have told and they immediately put that into the next project that they're doing. So let's say, we sometimes we teachers also use this very smartly. We'll say, you've done a great job. Everything is great. How about next time, we also look at our spellings. So they'll take that, and the next time when they're writing, they're so conscious about their spellings. So this is exactly what they do day in and day out in the environment. Isn't that, what it is? Yes, Sandhya, I would like to add to this. We're all so excited to share.
Yes, I'm very excited because, last week it happened that, we learnt about leaf adaptations, which is like, how plants in deserts or in mountain regions, like how do they adapt to harsh conditions. And then we really, because we had some succulents in the environment, so we studied them, like we touched them and felt. And then 2 of the children in the group said, like, we also have aloe vera downstairs. Can we get it up? So they say, yeah, you can always get the sample. Let's see what is inside, because that is also kind of succulent and there is a lot of gel and water content inside. So they opened the entire layer and, they removed the gel, and somehow they learnt all the names of those parts and they presented it to younger children. And then after that, they were left with this question like, okay, what do we do with this now? It's over. So what do we do? And then one of the child said, you know what, we apply it to face, we apply it to our hair. We do a lot of things. It has a lot of cosmetic related value, in that. And then they quickly figured out, okay, and they reached to Miss Kiranmai in innovation lab. And then, okay, we are not going to waste this. We'll make a soap out of this. So I never thought like, biology and just a leaf lesson will lead to a product making. Like they want to make a soap out of it now. And from where to where, like, that connection is amazing. Like I can't imagine by myself like that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Sandhya. So, I think there are a lot of things that the system has to offer, the philosophy has to offer, and has been offering day in and day out. But it is a philosophy, so we are also figuring it out every single day while working with children, while reading such amazing books. Thanks, Ayush. Where we are able to make these connections and make it much more vibrant and much more robust as an organization. So I think was just excited to share that connect that I made.
Great.
Over
Thank
to
you.
you,
Yes,
Manish.
thanks.
No, thank you. And we all know, as human beings, we love to get things validated. So, and especially when somebody writes so well in the book, and what we are doing in our BlueBlocks on a daily basis, if it gets validated, then obviously we feel a little better and little more encouraging to do it on a daily basis. And thank you for that, Pawan, Munira, and team doing that on a daily basis at the school. The thing that triggered my mindset in terms of how we could look at when the children grow up, right? They should be also be creating an organizational culture. What we are reading in this book, right? And it should not come out as rebellious, right? It should not come out that what kind of thinking that you are bringing in, right? Because they will be outliers for sure in the world that they will be operating, but they should not be such, I would say, rebellious outliers as well. So how we can actually promote this in the society right now? So one way we end up trying to do is how in the small groups or small organizational cultures, like for example when they are in their uh, you know uh, what do you call friend circles, and they are doing something, how we can still push this geek mentality or the aspect of questioning things, and slowly and subtly the questioning should not become like you are questioning just for the sake of it, but it becomes part of the culture that the team works in. So when the children come to our house and in their friend circle, we try to sort of make this a habit that it's not just games all the time. It will also be a few minutes of cross questioning things, why it's happening, what did you just do, why did you just do it, etc. Plus, when they operate in uh, some small circles within the society, within the community, how can a few more students uh, become or pick up this geek methodology, right, or the geek way as well? So it's not just how our children will grow up, but how we can actually put together a framework where a larger community grows up like this, and then it's easier to build that kind of a culture in the organizations when our children become that age. So that's something I think we as as BlueBlocks has, I think, a more righteous obligation to the society around us, especially in a country where we are for the sake of it, we are in the lower 40s or 50s when it comes to world innovation rank, but that still doesn't matter because we are not really innovating much. So that's something I think would be my major takeaway in terms of how we can replicate it in such a way that tomorrow in 2040s, 2050s, when all of our children are in organizations in India, how this culture becomes a standard by default as a culture. So that's something I would like to see how we can make that happen. Thank you.
Yes, that's a great line of thought, Manish, and we should surely be constantly looking at how do we cater to that. Yeah, great. Thanks, Manish. All right, let's see. Any other questions? Anyone? Yes, Manira, please go ahead.
So, again, picking up from what Manish shared about, how do we create this? How do we constantly look at the future and, see whether or not, we are doing it presently and what else will be required. So I think one of the important things to look at is what are we doing in the present? What is this present that we are in? What is it offering to us? And how are we tweaking that to make it more relevant for the future? So I'm going to go back to what Ayush started with. He said a couple of things which are very interesting and which the book talks about extensively, and that's autonomy, empowerment, and norms. Now, autonomy is we all know the meaning of autonomy, taking decisions on our own, doing things on our own. Now, to what extent are we as a human community ready to give autonomy to our children? What does that autonomy apply? How does that autonomy apply with our children? So the first step to that is for us to understand that children are born autonomous. And I'll give you an example that will help you understand this. No parent in this world can plan when the child is going to come out of the body. It is the child who decides that, okay, I'm ready, I'm going to come out of you now, right? That's the first step of autonomy that the child has expressed. Of course, I'm not going to go into elective cesareans and all of that. But yes, the child decides. That's the natural way that, okay, the child has decided, I'm going to come out. I'm done with staying within you. I'm coming out. That's the first step of autonomy. So the child is born autonomous. And each single day as the child grows up, the child is telling us, help me help myself. And Dr. Montessori spoke about this 100 years ago, about autonomy so strongly that the first 6 years, that's what the child is constantly telling us. Every time the child is grabbing the shoe from your hand and, not allowing you to make him wear it, or grabbing that, set of pants, or grabbing the spoon from your hand, he's trying to tell you that, help me help myself. And that's autonomy beginning right there. Now, every step of autonomy, every time the child experiences that, hey, I can dig this spoon into a bowl of porridge and I can take it all the way till my mouth and it has fallen. That's okay. But I can do this, gives the child the empowerment to now take the next spoonful and try to put it in his mouth. So autonomy leads to empowerment in an environment of freedom, where the child is free to express himself, free to do what he wants to do, right? So that autonomy and empowerment built strongly in the first 6 years of life, will take care of itself as they grow. And that's what will lead to a more curious child. That's what will lead to a child who's asking a lot more questions when they move to the older age groups. And then now, with this kind of a foundation, this kind of a background where there has been freedom, child has expressed himself, child has had the, autonomy to become independent and empowered. Is empowerment and autonomy even a question when this person now comes into the industry? This person who, as an adult, walks into any industry is going to take that ownership for their space and is going to do things in a way that no other person will be able to relate to, because he has been grown up that way. That's the upbringing. That's how this child has lived their life. That's the only way they know, right? And Ayush also spoke about norms, and the book speaks about norms. And, it talks about how these companies did not follow the regular norms. But what are norms, finally? Norms are nothing but ground rules that we have in the environment. And norms are not for your individual application, or it's not because, okay, I said it, that is why that norm has to be followed. But norms have been created for workability, and they are important. And that's where the social control of error comes into the picture. When we talk about children from 0 to 6, the kind of control of error that is there is not in the adult in a Montessori environment. The control of error lies in the material. The control of error lies in the rest of the group. So let's say if a child, has filled a glass of water and this water is overflowing, the adult will not be required to now go and tell this child, close the tap, the water is overflowing. There'll be 4 other children who will look at it and will react and say, the water is overflowing. Let's only fill a little below the brim. Now, this control of error lies in that mixed age group community, in that mixed age group environment. So, the autonomy, the empowerment, and this deep understanding of ground rules, which help you become a better human being. And what Prerna said about becoming humane, understanding a lot of things and having that overconfidence with the scientific connection is what will make the children humane. This is what, the Montessori system speaks about. This is what we get trained on how to actually help children become autonomous. So, yeah, I think that's a natural progression to what Manish said about, what are we doing? What are we thinking? How are we taking it in the future? Yes, Pawan.
And see, these are big words. These words of autonomy, freedom, and independence can be very threatening to our parental instincts. We want to be in control, and these words, all these three words, can be very threatening, not to you, but to those deep instincts we have as parents and also for educators. But since we are trained and we are constantly training ourselves, we are very aware when we are threatened by a children's autonomy, children's freedom, and their independence and their questioning. So the question I would leave all of you around this is, are you evolving, going beyond your instincts, and can you be okay with children being in control, children being autonomous, children having that freedom, children being independent, children making those decisions, children making those decisions and fail and fail and fail and fail and fail. The more they fail in your presence and my presence, you and I know how to get them going irrespective of failure. They don't fail in your presence and my presence, and they fail out there, and there's no one who cares will lift them, and forever they might not try. So we will have to question our identity as parents, our instincts, and as parents, how ready are we? And it's okay if we are not ready, as long as you're aware and you're committed to evolve, you're committed to accommodate this side of children, right? So thanks, Munira, for bringing that up. Yes, Kranti, over to you. You have a question or would like to share your thoughts, Kranti? Go ahead.
I would like to share my thoughts
Please,
if
please go ahead.
that's okay.
Yes,
I'll
yes.
not little contrarian to what was being discussed.
Sure, sure.
But firstly, happy for the book review, right? I have been itching to talk at book reviews for so long.
Oh,
And I hope this thing continues and we have more reviews. Very, very happy about it. Agree with all the principles laid out in the book. I think I have seen them at work at BlueBlocks. I can look at my own journey and see I was lucky enough that I could see the influence by my teachers or colleagues everywhere. So I think those principles are valid, right? The main concern I have or thought I have, which is related to this book as well as Hastings' other book, No Rule Rules, is it looks almost elitist in the sense that it talks about the success cases. It talks about the top 0.1% or 1%. We don't know, or the book might have done, or probably in the next version, which comes out this year, probably they'll have it. What happens, or how many companies have tried the approach or all the things, yet not in the path of success? There can be many factors. Now, obviously, it might be better than the other alternate approaches. Not saying that, but I these books kind of give a view that you follow this, there is success guaranteed at some point. I don't think that is true, right? And sometimes it's okay, even if there is no success, it's the journey, right? But still, for a completeness, that view has to be there in a great book. Just wanted.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective, Kranti. And the way I look at it is, right, like, generally, even in corporate world, right, we get to control the inputs and the processes. Almost never can we actually control the outputs, right? And I think what this gives us is a mental model on what are the controllable aspects that we can actually focus on naturally. Like, nobody can guarantee success, but it gives us a framework that, okay, these are the key inputs and this is the process, the probability of us probably making a dent in the world increases if we follow it. But I don't think anyone can actually claim 100% success rate, and that's how I look at it. What are the controllable aspects that we can actually leverage to kind of improve the possibility of outputs aligning with what we want the outputs to be. Um, that's how I look at it. It's a mental model.
I
Brilliant.
would just
Yeah.
I just add on to say it's more circular in nature. So it's like they started off their they had to start somewhere when they are doing a research. The point is the anchor for them is success of the organizations. Then they go back and see, okay, this is the kind of culture which is helping them to be successful. Of course, there are examples where the organizations failed also, but then they rose up, they were resilient. They had that speed to learn from the experience and then build up from there. There will be failures, no doubt about it, but once that culture is innate in the mind, probably the group will be better equipped to deal with those failures. That's the idea. So I think that's how I took it. That there is a starting point of success. They did a research, came up with the geeky culture. Geeky culture can also apply even if somebody is failing. Because geeky culture is not what I am applying just in the organization context. It's in my personal, professional life both. So I'll be better equipped to deal with it and move forward. That's how I'm.
Beautiful, beautiful, Prerna. And thanks, Kranti, for questioning everything which is mentioned in the book. We got to keep questioning, at school, any idea anyone has, the approach we take internally with the team and also to some extent with children is we always first build on the idea, no matter how crazy the idea sounds, how irrelevant this idea sounds. Before we shoot it down as a team, our approach is let's add to this, and when we are done adding to it is then when we look at you know uh, criticizing, because once we take up the critic mindset. See, the brain, the way we are wired, once you take a stand, the brain will only add points to the stand we take. So we first take a stand on being able to create out of nothing. And when we feel we are done in that realm, then we look at, let's see, what could be the negative aspect or detrimental aspect of what we are doing. So thanks for bringing that up, Kranti. Yes. So what I would like to leave all of you with is, it's very inspiring to think about how we prepare children for the future. So from the parenting point of view, at home, we can start having conversation with our children about their dreams and future goals. Like you can create a vision board as a family activity where each member illustrates or writes their aspirations. So generally, we don't focus on us. See, children want to do what you are doing. Like you isolate child and talk about his aspirations and goals, the child might not open up. Some might, some might not, right? But once you say, okay, let's all look at our future goals, is when the child will start to reflect. And in your future goals, you can start talking about this is the goal, but this is the goal which I am creating out of my comfort zone. Let's see what is the future goal I can create, which will not be comfortable for me. See, you always operate from comfort zone and then you are expecting children to push themselves. That's not happening. Whether we like it or not, we are the role models for children. Whether we want them to be our role models, we want them to look at us as their role models or not, we are still the role models. So you keep pushing, you keep creating future goals, you keep questioning. Questioning from critique point of view is also a point of view, a mindset which all of us need to develop. But this is the age, like we are all designed to be critique. If you see out of 100 people, all 100 can critique, but only 10 of them can actually take any stand and contribute. So at this age, what we want to nurture is being able to build on ideas, being able to create ideas, and it's okay how crazy it is. Who are you and me to judge the craziness. Who are you and me to say that this is not possible? And today you bring up anything and our children can articulate how this is possible. It might not be possible in 2025, but it might be possible in 2050, or this might be possible in 2150, right? So let's continue to reflect on everything which is mentioned in the book. And to build on what Kranti said, Kranti, we are happy to do more such book reviews. There are loads of articles, loads of research material, which both we as educators and parents have to constantly reflect. Now, we have loads of frameworks internally to reflect. There are workshops happening all over the world around Montessori and non-Montessori, which we as a team participate. We have a lot of internal structures, and we see that we do not have enough structures with parents to constantly reflect, and we'll surely make this a regular affair, Kranti. All right. So if you have any suggestion for book, please share that in your child's group and someone will make a note of that. We would want more of you to take up being lead presenter, co-presenter. The more you participate, the more team is empowered to plan and organize more of these, right? All right, great. So I think, the first session, Ayush, we started with a bang, and we are open to listen to anyone if they want to say anything before we conclude. So any of you would like to share anything about today's conversation, today's book review, please feel free to share. You can just unmute and share. Anything you would like to say to conclude, to add to what we all share.
I'll just say this is one of the books I just got hooked to. So thank you for this recommendation. It's been a fun conversation.
Wonderful. All right.
Thank you for the recommendation. I enjoyed the entire conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, even I enjoyed all the conversations, and it's a wonderful start, this book review program, and yeah, looking forward for another book review. Thank you.
And I think Ayush surely deserves a big round of applause for initiating, putting all the effort. He
Thank you.
BlueBlocks. He spent a whole day trying to make the connections after what Montessori wrote. He wanted to personally experience to validate everything which was mentioned. So this initiative which you started, Ayush, will go a long way. Thank you so much for that. All right.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Mr. Pawan and Ms. Mudira. Thank you. This was fun.
All right, great. Thank you so much. See you all for the next book review and any other event. By the way, we have a drone fest on 15th Feb. Don't miss. For younger children, there will be a paper plane workshop. For elder children's parents, you will see your children in action. All right. So a lot of what we spoke today around the Geek Way culture, Ayush, you will all see how it reflects in children's expression of their ideas. All right. So see you all on 15th of Feb at Telapur from 9 to 12 a.m. Thank you so much.